All right. So, hi everybody. Thank you for another episode of Reading to Feed Your Mind. I'm Stacey Woods, your host. Today we have a really great show. We have several ladies coming to tell us about a project that they're working on. And it's in 2 volumes. You have the first volume, which is Beauty in the Battle, Stormproof. And then the second volume is Tried by Fire, Embracing the Battle. So all of this was an initiative by Nicole Jones, and I'm going to give her an opportunity to tell you a little bit about how she came up with all of this. And then you're going to have an opportunity to meet several of the ladies. We weren't able to get all of them on this podcast, but I think we have a group of really magnificent women that have great stories to tell and coming from very diverse backgrounds. So I'm not going to delay it any longer. I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Jones. Yay!
Yay!
All right. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you for this opportunity to create a platform for you to share your project. So go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stacey, for having us. Thank you, Lisa, for arranging this with Stacey. I am Nicole Jones. I have a speaking and publishing company called J. Nicole Speaks. And with J. Nicole Speaks, I encourage women to master their personal story and their journey in ways that inspire and empower others to overcome. So in doing that, I am a narrative healing coach. And what that means when people hear it, because everybody knows of a life coach, right? But when I say narrative healing, they're like, well, what is that? I encourage people to master their story, master the events of their lives and how those events have affected them by just telling and sharing their story. So those stories could be of hope, strength, courage, love, pain, hurt, power, confidence, freedom, everything. One of the gifts that we have as African-American women is the ability to story tell and pass those stories of just strength and courage. A lot of our secrets, our cooking secrets, how we raise our kids, those are passed down through stories from generation to generation. And, my mindset is that healing can be passed down through stories from generation to generation. I feel that everybody that is a part of this project is somehow healing their generation, healing their bloodlines. Hey, the buck stopped with us. And maybe there were things that were passed down or may have happened that no one ever talked about. And these over 30 women were courageous enough to do that. So, and how I got these ladies on this project is I put out a Facebook post, very generic. Who wants to tell their story? I was only hoping and praying for about 12 to 15 women, and it was doubled, which is why we have books.
Yeah.
We,
Black girl magic is real. We are real. And now the world is beginning to recognize, Absolutely. You can walk just a little bit more proudly because we, over the last couple of years, we've really shown our power, shown who we are, and people are starting to take more notice of us.
I agree. Yeah.
All right. So what were some of the challenges that you faced in getting this done?
Oh, that's really good. For most of the authors, I think they will agree, is telling your story in 1,000 words, right?
Oh, okay, yes.
The publisher limited us to 1,000 words. So, with 1,000 words, as soon as you get ready to start telling the story, it's time to conclude the story.
Yes.
Yeah. But what that does is that opens the path for more stories, more books, right? Their own individual projects. Some of them have launched ministries from this, coaching from this. So those 1,000 words open up so much in each one of the authors, especially their confidence to know that, number one, I've accomplished something. Number two, I can do this. Perhaps you've had the idea, you've had the download for God, that you were supposed to do more than just go to that job and come home at night, but you never took the leap to do so. Well, with 1,000 words, you're able to do that. So I
Okay.
think that was the biggest challenge for most of them, is the 1,000 words. What I also find challenging is not for me, because I've gone through this process before, but when people, well, I don't know if I should tell that. I don't know if I should say that because I don't want so-and-so to get mad.
Yes.
Get mad. You know, like the little soldier
Yes.
boy meme. What? Get mad? Are you
Yes.
serious?
Help today,
So,
guys.
yeah, you know, just getting people comfortable enough to share their truth.
Mhm, mhm.
And just how empowering that is for folks. That's so empowering when you do that, because you
Yeah.
realize whatever was hanging over your head no longer has any power over you anymore.
And you understand that you're not the only one. You know, I always heard, and I know now, that the devil's biggest tool is making you think that you're the only one that's going through something. And yep. So,
Mhm.
all right, well, that's great. So we're going to come back.
Yeah.
So now what I would like to do is to have each of the ladies. I do want to ask you this first. How did you
Yeah.
come up with the 2 separate volumes and the titles of the volume? Tell us
Yeah.
that.
So I have my own project. Hold me, move the camera over a little bit. My own project was the Beauty in the Battle. That's how the first name came up. So the first book was going to be the Battle, which we gave Stormproof. And because I take that from the scripture in Isaiah, beauty for ashes. No matter what you've gone through, you know, God will give you beauty for ashes. So I always loved the exchange of beauty for pain, right? And how God takes situations and makes them beautiful, or makes us do that transformation. So that's kind of how the word beauty was incorporated. And they both were supposed to be the Beauty in the Battle. Just each volume was going to be Stormproof, and then one was going to be Tried by Fire. And how I came up with that is literally, they said, you got to give these some names. All right. Okay, God, what we going to do? Okay, Holy Spirit, what do you want them to be? And so this is what we got.
Okay. So how are they selected? How do they place the stories in each volume?
Yeah, so what I did, because everybody knew what they were going to write about, so I put out a post in our group. We have a Facebook group. We do a lot of exchange. Where do you think your story fits?
Okay.
Now,
okay.
ironically, a lot of people may have picked another book, but the publisher at the end, once she read all the stories, she made some decisions to move people over based on the. So we'll see. I don't even know who's in which book really. I think we have a list of them, but I'm curious to see how they laid those stories out myself, because I haven't seen them yet.
Okay, great. So that was a good foundation to get, and we'll be coming back with some more questions. But now I want to jump in to speak with some of the ladies that we have, and so we're going to start with Carrie.
Right. Hi.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your story and what you hope people get out of it.
So I can tell you a little bit about myself. Actually, I can say a lot, but I'll be succinct. I am a storyteller by nature, just period. I have been storytelling for a very long time. I remember being a little girl, just always telling stories, you know, and I would create imagery when I told my story, because I wanted people to literally see what it was that I was saying. And so I got into high school, I started writing. I took this course called Bronze Reminiscence, and it allowed me to really do some storytelling, travel around the city and the state of Georgia, performing for people. And I learned how to write succinctly when I was about 15 years old. So it was really difficult then. So when we were challenged with writing 1,000 words, I was like, oh, that's nothing. I can do it for 500 words. So I was really trying to find a way to express my imagery, my thoughts into this 1,000 words creatively. I am an owner of a production company. It's a fashion entertainment production company. I teach people how to model, and particularly all ages, but I have an affinity for seniors age 55 and older. So I really teach them how to strut. And I'm not talking about barely can walk. I'm talking about Naomi Campbell, Beverly Johnson type strut. And so I find myself being around older people all the time. And you know that older people need people to care for them. And sometimes they are the main caregiver for their families. So I've been around them all my life, you know, and I'm listening to them tell their stories, watching how they move and operate. And it was just befitting for me to kind of work with them in a sense. In addition to my production company, I have a nonprofit organization called Opportunity. My nickname is Tut. So my name of my company is Another Tut Production. And then the nonprofit is Opportunity. And so, and what I do, I work with people, give them an opportunity to express themselves through fashion. And so, when it comes down to my story, I wrote about caregiving because I know that sometimes people overlook caregivers. We get so engulfed in taking care of others. You know, people see caregivers as being the strong one, the ones that can take care of business, the ones that are organized, the one that has it all together. But when it's all said and done, who take care of the caregiver? Who cares for the caregiver? So I'm talking in this story from the perspective of a caregiver. You know, my sister passed with breast cancer, and I was her caregiver, in addition to everything else that I had going on in my life. And so I had multiple things going on while I was taking care of a sister who was married, by the way. But she told me, my husband gonna need some help. And so me being the main caregiver for her, I started looking at things from a different perspective. Now I'm very calm in nature. You know, I make sound decisions. People don't really get under my skin. You know, people see all over the place, and I'm still very calm. And in sometimes when there are crises, I'm still very calm. And it could be because I was raised by a man, I don't know. But a lot of things just don't bother me. And so I found that when I was caregiving, people would look at me and like, well, why isn't she crying? Why isn't she wailing? Why isn't she, you know, all over the place? Because that was my piece. The way that I handled things, that's just how I operated. And of course, as caregivers, people will always challenge you to say, why are you doing this way? Why are you doing that way? So I just started, you know, a focus group a long time ago, just with caregivers, and the stories that came out of it. The one central story was, who cared for me? So
I can relate. I can relate.
Yeah, I wanted to be the voice of those caregivers. So I tell my story in a very creative way that really sits you right there in it. And I go from one end of the spectrum to the next, but you'll get it at the end.
So, I mean, and it opens up a window for people to see, I guess, really what a caregiver goes through if you haven't been in that situation.
Absolutely. And from different perspectives. If you are a mother and a caregiver, a girlfriend and a caregiver, a wife and a caregiver, a daughter and a caregiver, an auntie and a caregiver, a full-time student and a caregiver, it's all of those perspectives rolled up into one.
Okay, great. Well, that should be interesting. I am excited, and I can't wait to read the different stories. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So who's going to be next?
Amia.
All right. So welcome, Amia. So again, we're just telling us tell us a little bit about you and your story and what you hope people get out of it.
Okay. And thank you for allowing us to have this platform to share as a launching pad. And my name is Amia Guild, and I am a proud mother of 3 and a bonus. And I have a granddaughter, and I am the owner and operator of Takes a Village Transportation, where we provide private services for families getting students to and from school on a door-to-door basis, as well as provide transportation support to mentoring programs throughout the city, and with schools with private and public sectors as well. And so we've been in business for 4 years. It's our 4th full school year, and God is just doing some amazing things. I love to write. I write all the time, and God had been putting in my spirit from the time I was in my early 20s to write a book. And it's been more like a collective of stories of over time. And so when this project came, it was it was like, okay, God, this would be like my launching pad, my starting point to be able to, really get out there to tell my story. I did one post, and Alandria, she said, she and Nicole both responded at the same time, like, when are you going to write your book? And then shortly after that, Nicole put the information out there. I was one of the ones that Nicole was speaking about when she said, others like, don't tell my business, don't put that out there. And because mine is related to marriage. And so to be authentic in my truth, to sit in my truth, it wasn't easy. I didn't just come up with a title. I could have just pulled from the many writings that I have, and I didn't want to do that. So I had some time to sit with God to see what it is that he wanted me to talk about. So when he gave me the title, I said, oh, wait a minute, hold on. I said, I don't know about that one. So I went on ahead, and about a week or two later, I posted it in our group message, what my title would be. And then from there, others began to share and say, you hit in my household, tell the story, others need it. And it comes from that perspective of dealing with addiction, but in pornography. Growing up, I dealt with addiction in my household with my parents, being on and off drugs, of crack cocaine and heroin. And I just thank God that he delivered my mom for 16 years before she went to glory. And my bonus dad, he has 26 years at this time. But never did I think that it would reach my household personally, but not in the way of drugs and alcohol, but in the way of pornography. And so I wrote it from the perspective of telling the story of how my husband and I met, and what we thought the marriage would look like. And then how is it that we come to this particular point, and then to the place of healing. So I definitely know that there's more of the story to tell. There's more of the story to write, but this here has given an opportunity to begin that. And my hope is to get the conversation going, because we did 8 weeks of premarital counseling. Nobody talks about that. We did individual counseling. Nobody talked about that. You talk about finances. You talk about the roles in the home. And if you have a blended family, you talk about the children. If you have debt, you talk about how you're going to tackle the debt, making sure you're equally yoked. If you're a Christian, I'm a Christian, we talk from that perspective, in individual and group counseling with others that were getting married for 8 weeks. But nobody ever talked about what does it look like when infidelity hits your marriage. We don't talk about that in church. There is no class, there is no group. And so it happens more often than people are willing to admit. Yes. So for me, my husband, he wasn't fully on board with me telling of the story, but God put it out there because it's the time for the story to be told and to be shared, not just for the healing of my marriage, but for the healing of another marriage. And the healing of someone before they even say I do. And to ask that, we ask many things about, relationships when we're dating that individual, right? We ask about, we even say, about your credit. We talk about your affiliation, what religion. We talk about if you have children, do you, what your debt look like. We talk about all these things, but nobody ever talk about, do you have any addictions? Have you ever had a struggle? Have you ever, and, are you in counseling now? Nobody talks about those things. We talk about the cute stuff and the stuff we think that's going to matter, but nobody gets to the heart and the root of those things. And what I have found is, just like any other addiction, there's a root cause. And there's some undealt trauma that's undealt with, that's not being dealt with. And so that's really important, just like alcohol and drugs is just a coping mechanism that an individual uses. So I'm grateful today that I'm still seeking counseling. So is my husband. So there's more of the story to unfold. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Interesting. And, when I got married, I really got mad about that whole equally yoked. Because, it's so many people are always, make sure you're equally yoked. He in church, you in church, da, 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 da. And I'm like, equally yoked is so much more than just being in church. It's you all being on, the same level, the same core structure, not so much church, but it's
even
about
beyond that. It's even if you know what a yoke is, yoke are two pieces that are not the same that fit together. So like we say that so wrong in churches, we say equally yoked. But has anybody like looked at what a yoke is? They're not the same piece.
No.
It's like, duh. They're not the same piece. And when Holy Spirit revealed that to me, like, I wish y'all would stop even saying this, because you're not even saying it of me. You're not supposed to be the same. It's more of a character issue. It's the character and the heart posture is what God is concerned about, not what church you're a member of.
Oh my goodness, yes. Because the way I explained it to my daughter is, if you're equally yoked, that character, like you're saying, Nicole, it's about, so because as we get older, if you get married when you're young, and as we get older, our interests will change. The things that once excited us may not excite us anymore. So it's being able to move together through that process. No, you still may not like the same thing, but if the core and the character of you all are the same, if he picks up golf and you say, no, I like tennis, then you all can still balance life.
Absolutely.
And him being the golfer and you playing tennis now. So it's just that core character that needs to be there, that similarity and interest in the character, moral level, and everything else will grow, in its time.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So again, another exciting story that and hopefully, because that's how I learned in life. And again, I was telling my daughter, I was like, I am the baby. It's just me, my sister and I, but I'm on the baby end of all of my first cousins. So my sister and first cousins are all 7 to 16 years older than me. So I spent my life always looking up, watching. And I took notes of the things that I liked. And I also took notes of the mistakes I saw that they were making. It's like, okay, don't do this. Take a little note. Okay, note to self. Don't do it like that. Don't do it. So being able to watch. So that's what I'm praying, that we'll all, people will be able to pick up this book and see commonalities, and, it'll be a really great impact. So
that they're not alone. Right.
Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you, Amia. So who's going to be next?
Thank you. I'll go next. I'm Tamika Hudson. How are you?
I'm good, Tamika. How are you? Welcome.
I'm well. Thank you so much. And thank you again for this platform. I'm really grateful. This is my first time doing anything like this, telling my story out loud, joining, another group of young ladies who want to tell their story and to get our stories out there. And it was just like Nicole said, it was scary for me. And the reason it was scary is because I've always been the type of person that was always in the background, always rooting everyone else on, encouraging everyone else, but I never wanted to put myself out there, put myself out in the front and have people have the spotlight on me for a number of reasons, mainly insecurity. And just never wanted to, I just wanted to pray about my situation, get over it in my own time, and just move on with life. But my story, well, first of all, I'm a wife of 17 years to my husband. He's a minister. I'm also a mother of 2, and I have 2 bonus daughters. My husband and I don't have any children together. I have a bakery called Hudson's Baked Goods. I home-based bakery. And also, I'm starting a, athletic line. My husband and I also have an online ministry together called You All to Christ. And the reason I wanted to go behind Amia is because my story is also about marriage and also about infidelity. And also, my husband and I also dealt with addictions. And it was because of his addiction that he decided to have an affair. Step outside of the marriage. And at one point he wanted to actually be with this other woman. But the difference between the one thing that was very interesting in my situation is my husband knew that he had an addiction.
He just didn't know how to handle it. And as he was acting out, and that's kind of what we call it, acting out, as he was acting out, he actually realized that he knew he needed help years ago. And of course I was heartbroken, but with the betrayal, just had a roller coaster of emotions. And I wasn't really, because number one, this is my second marriage. And two, I really wasn't interested in really getting any help. If you want to get help, fine. But I wanted to kind of move on. We separated for quite some time. But honestly, within me, I never felt the need to divorce him. And it was strange because that's just not my character. I wasn't the type of person that stuck around when people are quote unquote doing me wrong. In my eyes, I always, cut the cord and kept it moving. But for some reason, God just didn't put that in my spirit. So I just started praying, started reading books, got into, doing study groups and all those types of things. So we actually went through a 12-step program so he can deal with his addiction. And actually there's a 12-step program for people who've been affected for people who are addicted. And that's what we went through. And I'm very grateful that I went through that. Also, we did counseling. We're still in couples counseling. We did the individual, we did, couples. And the greatest thing about our situation is he sought help and he wanted me to get help with him. And I was very much against that because I felt you're the one with the problem. You're the one with the issues. You're the one that needs to go through this, and we can come back together and talk about it later. But I realized that even though he had issues that he acknowledged, I had issues that I didn't acknowledge. So my story basically just talks about how, just goes through that whole situation of how we, I dealt with the infidelity. We went through the 12-step program and how we overcame that, and just give the different steps about how you can trust your husband again, how you can basically trust anyone who's betrayed you again. And yes, you have to put your trust in God. You have to be led by the Holy Spirit, but you can also get over it. You don't have to, infidelity doesn't mean it has to end in divorce. Doesn't mean it has to end in separation. But the key is you have to both want it. You have to both be willing to walk the path and do the work to healing. And if you don't have that, then you're going to be kind of, teetering totting between, if I should stay, should I go, should I stay, should I go? But eventually you'll know exactly what to do. And that's one thing that I also learned, that you'll know eventually exactly what you need to do. And whether it's with your marriage or whether it's with anyone else, if you stay the course and if you continue to trust God, but God will reveal to you exactly what you need to do. And in our situation, we stayed together. This was around year 3 or 4. We made it to 17, to be 18 years in May. And I just, my story, I just want people to realize that infidelity doesn't always mean that you have to leave that spouse. But there is an opportunity for you to trust again. You can really trust again. You can really, behaviors have to change. You can't listen to words. You have to look at behavior, something that I learned in my 30s that I didn't know in marriage number 1. This is marriage number 2. And, again, I'm, coming to what I felt was an end. But, you can trust again. You can get over the issues of betrayal, but you also have to do the work, because I'm a firm believer that in every relationship, there are 2 parties in the relationship, and each party has a duty, if you will, in the relationship. And, if it falls apart, there's something that you can improve to, even if you're not the one that quote unquote caused it to fall apart. But when I approached, and then I always knew that I went through this for a reason. This happened years ago. And I always knew I was going through this for a reason. And when Nicole, presented the opportunity for us to tell our stories, I said, okay, this is my opportunity to tell my story. And I even waited. I paid for I did everything, signed up, did my story, wrote my story out. And I did all that before I even told my husband I was doing this. But the amazing thing is, when I told him, he said, whatever God lays on your heart to tell, go ahead and tell it. And then another amazing thing, as we were doing a commercial with Nicole and some of the other authors, my husband actually and I believe this was all God. My husband actually approached Nicole, and he wants to tell his side of the story as to why he ended up doing the things that he did. And and I thought that was, I'd never mentioned that to him. And now he wants to tell his side of the story and get his, get his story out there. And mind you, he's a minister. He's a well-known, now somewhat well-known. He has know a lot of ministers within the Atlanta area, but he's willing to tell what he's gone through and how he was able to heal. So I know this was of God. I know everything that we're doing was definitely, guided by the Lord.
All right. Well, another great story. And that's going to help a lot of people because this younger generation, and I think we probably all were about the same as well. I was, again, talking to my daughter about this whole Derrick Jackson stuff that's going on. And I was like, what you have to understand is when you're outside, when you're single, never been married, it's you can say, oh, I never do that, and be adamant. But just like you just said, before you would have been like, oh, close that door, whatever, but now you get older, you understand things, and it's just a different ball game. Everybody is different. So we can't say cut and dry, I'm just not, and that's what I'm trying to get her to understand. But again, you have to live it to really know it, All right. Well, Tamika, thank you. Thank you. So who's going to be next?
I'll go ahead and go next.
All right, Lisa. Woo-hoo.
Okay, I'm sorry. The phone's falling over.
First of all, no, I'm not going to say it.
No, I charged it. It's charged.
No. I was going to say you need to take that shirt off. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, never.
I'm mad at him. I'm a season ticket holder, so I'll be
always come home. It's okay.
Oh yeah, I haven't left. I'm just mad at him.
Yeah, it's okay. You can be mad all day.
Okay, all right.
Okay, but anyway, okay. I'm Lisa Middlebrooks, and the chapter that I wrote about is when life changed. So. I went through a number of things, and I'm realizing over the past month or so how well God has ordered the steps in my life to prepare me for what I've been through. But in essence, I have become a self-advocate for your health, a health advocate. Really, it's so important for everyone to be their own best advocate. I'd always heard that term, and I was like, but until it happens to you, then you get it. And then when I look back over things in my life, I noticed a pattern. Not only I had to be the best advocate for me, but I gave birth to an infant 6 months pregnant, 1 pound, 15 ounces, who is 28 years old. He's a grown ass man now. And my penchant for being able to be an advocate for his health has helped him get to where he is. I mean, you have a child at 1.15.7 ounces, you're thinking, oh, okay, the child has a number of challenges. His challenges weren't like challenges that, as you think. He graduated kindergarten, he graduated middle school, he graduated high school, he's done a year of college, and all of that prepared me for when I had to be the advocate for Lisa. I was diagnosed with a autoimmune disease. An autoimmune disease that there is no cure for. And that was an interesting part of my life. I went to the hospital and woke up 3 weeks later. I had severe encephalopathy, which is a swelling on the brain. They didn't know what was wrong. They didn't know what caused it. I had 2 brain biopsies, the whole penchant of things. And it's like, how does this happen to me? How? I had recently got the last child out of the house. she the last one had graduated and was at school. So I had gotten a divorce. I was trying to live my best life. And here it is. I'm in the middle of all of this. What the heck? How does this happen? And I have been shown that it was all for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And now, between what I learned from a medical standpoint, from when I went through it with my son, I went through it with me, and the self-advocacy even went on to where I took care of my mother for 10 years and she recently passed away.
Mm-hmm.
All of that taught me at a certain point. And what I shared in my chapter was how I traveled through that self-health advocacy deal. I learned everything that I could about the illness. I learned to compare test results. I learned about the medication. I saw the things that would work, wouldn't work, what I should take, what I never should take,
Mm-hmm.
and things to look out for. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know that it will free someone, it will help someone, and it'll make, even if it's not for a person personally, it will help them help a loved one, a friend, a neighbor, because me now, I'm at the point where I give information to anybody,
Mm-hmm.
anybody who wants, who needs, who asks. I'll do it. I'll find it out. I get to looking up stuff because I figured out Google is your friend.
Yes.
Google is your friend.
Yes.
And so that's basically, as you see, I get started and get going. But okay, that's that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Yes. Well, thank you. But you know what? And it is so important. And a lot of times people don't know where to go and how to look. And it is so important not to just fully take your doctor's word. You can listen to them. And I'm an advocate for going to the doctor. I always, if something's going wrong, I go to the doctor and then I get their diagnosis and I look for alternative measures. They'll say one medicine, but then I'll start Googling and looking for herbal remedies. I still may take the doctor's medicine, but get to the core of it. Why and what can I now change so that I can do a natural approach to the healing,
Exactly.
as well. Yeah.
After, of course, because of the brain swelling, I was, of course, as I mentioned before, I was asleep for 3 weeks. And to miss 3 weeks of your life and not really know or understand when you wake up, they're like, oh yeah, you have this situation that happened and this is probably why it happened. And I'm just going to be honest, stress really kills you. It will really kill you. I allowed a lot of things to hamper my well-being, which now I've got a totally different look and behavior that I act on as to how I go about things. But I just, how you always think, oh yeah, stress kills. Oh, okay, calm down, girl. Stress kills. No, the hell, it really will.
Yes.
I was on the way, and no, that can't happen. Look, I ain't ready to go. How about that?
Yes.
And to be not ready, I had to change my lifestyle. Now, the only thing that I face is I have to take a bunch of prednisone.
Yes.
Which is why in my eyes, compared to how I used to be, I'm fat as hell. But
even in that, the prednisone, you can find some, don't not take it, because my husband has an autoimmune disease in his lungs and he was on prednisone for a while and he's been able to kind of wean off it, but he never was on high dosages of it.
Oh.
So that might be why he was, kind of wean off of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I will share a little thing that happened with me. When I was released from the hospital in 2017, I was on 80 milligrams of prednisone per day, which is a lot.
Yes.
I got down to 10.
Oh, that's good.
Down to 7. But my body is so cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It is almost like prednisone. After you take it for a while, your body gets addicted to the prednisone.
Yep. Yes.
And so every time they get me down under 10, I have what's called a flare and I end up back in the hospital.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this has happened like 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're like, you can't go below 10. We can't get you below 10. Because if we do, you're going to flare, and the flare could lead to you actually not being here with us anymore.
Yeah. No. So don't. Yeah.
So I can't get below 10. So chunky marshmallow is what it is. Chocolate marshmallow.
Beautiful marshmallow. Beautiful marshmallow.
But in essence, I'm really hopeful that me sharing my experiences in that fashion, and I tell Nicole all the time, I am so glad to be a part of this whole thing, because I was never one to really do the storytelling thing. When Carrie spoke earlier about her storytelling, that's me. I always, in me, I had to learn how to chop it down. When they said 1,000 words, I'm like, oh God.
But you got it.
Yes, I got it. And I'm happy to be a part, and I'm learning so much from everybody. And all of us were put together in this whole anthology for a reason. And the main thing to take away from it is, what can I give to you and what can I learn from you?
Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you again. I so appreciate you being open to having all of us here and share in this
He's
platform.
moving us. He's moving us. He has a purpose. So I'm glad we're being obedient and going with it. I really am.
Yes, Chocolate Girl Magic.
Yes. All right. Who's going to be next?
I'll go next.
All right, Ruth. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for everything. Thanks for this platform. So my name is Ruth Dixon Taylor, and my title is Shining Through Perseverance in the volume Beauty in the Battle. And I speak from a very private place in my life. I started, well, actually, let me introduce myself all over again. So I am the only child, kids, but I am my mom's baby. And I'm a journalism major, but I have over 15 years of experience as a federal contractor in the IT industry. And a little bit of my story is based around me trying to find my way out here in the world. Seeking proper advice and alignment from those who matter the most. So let me back up a little bit. I'm from Daytona Beach, Florida. In my story, I talk about a little bit of addiction, addiction that caused my mom and I to lose a house. And my mother had to work very hard, 3 jobs to send me to college. I talk about some of the things I experienced behind that has shaped me to be the person that I am right now. And I talk about going off to college, some other things, as well as moving from Florida to Washington, D.C. I was in Washington, D.C. working, for about 19 years. And what I want readers to know from my story is you can still shine. You can find that sunlight, in the battle, whatever you're going through. And I want people to understand that proper alignment is important when you are going through. That is what helps you find that sunshine. What helps you get over the hill, and never be too, proud or prideful to ask for help. Some of us get off in these situations and we don't want people to know about what we're going through, but it helps. It helps speak up. And this book and this platform is about speaking up. You know, I want people to know that it's okay to tell your story. I was private. I'm still private. But Nicole convinced me that I had something to say, and writing. I am. So I'm glad that I decided to share my story, because I have some very detailed points in my story that I said I would never tell. But I know that somebody's going to read it, and it's going to help someone, and it's going to bring healing. It's going to bring healing. You know, it's going to free someone. You know, it's going to inspire other people to do the same. And that's why I want people to understand that you have to speak your truth. Truth. You know, that's healing. And when you are going through, I'm saying it again, you can still shine. Still find that light. You know, believe in yourself, put God first, and you'll be okay. You know, people came before us, made it through. Some didn't. I made it through. To be thankful about. And, you know, I'm one of those people. So that's my story, and I want people to know.
All right. Thank you. Yes, I tell people I look my best on my worst days. I think Susan Taylor and Essence and all of that, you know, I think I picked that up in there. You know, when you're feeling down, put on your best and lift yourself.
Yes.
So, you know, some of my worst days are the days that I look probably my best. You know,
absolutely.
So, all right. Thank you, Ruth. Another great story. I keep saying that, but I really mean it, you know, because it will open and I think that our young ladies, the ladies in this generation really need that. I think, you know, we've all needed it, but I think this is a time that we really need that motivation. So it is a blessing that you all are all sharing your stories. So thank you. Thank you. All right. So who's next?
I'll go next.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right.
No, Brandy. No, Brandy. If you want to go next, that's fine.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and pop in. Good evening, ladies. This is Brandy Warrior and Stacey.
Hey, Brandy.
Hey, lady. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for the invite this evening.
I love your background. I love that background.
Thank you.
I love that.
I'm just so glad to be here with my sisters, and some of us we've met before with the photo shoot. Some of us we haven't met, you know, so it's just good to be in the same room with my sisters, opening up our hearts and our minds to share our stories and be vulnerable. And so with my particular story, the title is called When the Emotional Levees Broke. And basically it can spread across any type of topic, but what I honed in on is being a teenager, losing my father to cancer, and going into a place of denial and putting on that mask. And I just refused to grieve for several years. And when I finally did, it just released healing. And I will say the start of healing. I'm 41 now, so I'm still learning myself, you know, learning that self-reflection and understanding total health. And I understand part of what Lisa, you know, was talking about in that total health space. And so many of us are focused on that and just being mentally healthy, emotional, spiritually, and all of that good stuff. But just being able to face that space of grieving the loss of my dad and not having that male figure. Sure, I had my uncle, sure, I had my pastor, but didn't have my dad, you know, and really looking at how that affected my life, you know, how that affected decisions that I made and guys that I dated, you know, how that may have affected career choices, how that may have impacted any type of choices that I made. And so when people read this story, I want them to understand that it's okay to face whatever you're going through, because when you hold it tight and keep it in, it's going to burst. Sometimes it can burst in an unhealthy way, but either way, we have to face it. And so I just want people to walk away feeling like, okay, maybe I need to self-reflect and go back to that thing that hurt me the most,
Yes.
because the masking came from the hurt. It came from the pain, it came from the anger. I just didn't realize it at 13. And so I'm thankful for the journey. I'm thankful that this happened, what, maybe 20 years ago when it finally hit me. But that has opened up other stories for me, which I'm sure, like so many of us, talked about the 1,000 words. Okay, Lord, how can I condense this? But then God also said, well, this is the starting point. So you're going to start telling your story here, but allow this to open up other areas for you to really give those dirty details and expound upon it, and then share other stories and testimonies. I just want women to be healed, to be
Yes.
set free, to not just keep everything in the house or keep everything to yourself. I've recently, joined therapy, and I'm happy about that, just to make sure I'm good, across the board. Sometimes we need somebody to talk to when everything is okay, just to keep it that way,
Yeah.
So that's what I'm focused on in my story, and I just pray that it blesses someone.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, that you said a mouthful. I talked to my daughter again. I only have one daughter, y'all. That's why I keep saying my daughter. But I try to pass on as much as I can to her, and that's one thing I talk to her about, making sure if you don't talk to me, if you want to go, making her feel okay if she needs to go and sit down and talk to somebody. I was like, because mama will run to a counselor in a heartbeat because we have mental health issues in my family and I don't want to be one of them. So I try to get it off. So thank you so much, Brandy. Thank you. All right. So who's next?
I'll be next if nobody else is going to jump up so we don't talk at the same time.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Katrina Golden, and my story is in Tried by Fire, and the title of mine is I'm Still Here. I talk about how I was molested as a child, was raped as a young teenager, the things that I went through with a man that was allergic to work but addicted to other women, and how I'm still here. I'm still standing. If I'm still standing, that means that you, and if you're reading this, and I say that in the chapter, if you're reading this, that means you're still here and you have a purpose.
All right, that's beautiful. And I just got tickled at the way you phrased it, allergic to work.
Well, he was.
Yes.
The brother was allergic. I swear
goodness.
I would break out in hives if I mentioned job, so, he was allergic.
All right, I understand. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you. All right, so who's next? Katrina, were you the one that joined us a little late?
Yes, I own a bakery, and I was busy trying to get, because we're in our local mall on the weekends and also at the Augusta market. So I was trying to get our stuff already, and I had it in my head, okay, at 6:30, you need to stop what you're doing so you can get your life together and be here on this podcast. And the next thing I looked up, it was 7:45. I'm like, OMG, okay.
Yes,
so,
yes. No, and I was asking that just because I was trying to see if there was anyone else. So I think you are our last author to discuss. So ladies, I just want to say thank you. I'm sorry.
There are actually 4.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Marvette. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think Jennifer wanted to go ahead and go. It doesn't matter, but I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, thank you, Marvette. I'll go ahead and go.
Okay.
Good evening, Stacey, and thank you for having us on your platform. I wanted to get that out of the way first and say good evening to my fellow authors, my sisters in Triumph. Hopefully everybody's having a good day today. My name is Jennifer Hardy, and I am in the Stormproof Beauty in the Battle book.
Okay.
The name of my chapter is From Check Him to Check Me.
Mm.
And I will start with, I'm an attorney by trade. So my chapter talks about my first marriage was an abusive marriage. And typically people don't think that, women like me will end up in that situation. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to share my story, that even though I'm the one that everybody comes to, I have everything together, that, you know, it doesn't always look beneath the surface the way it looks like on the outside. And what I wanted people to get from this story, from the 1,000 words, is that even though when you go through abusive relationships or marriages, the main thing people tell you is they want you to get out. However, once you get out, that's when the real work begins. And I chronicle my journey through therapy. I went to therapy kicking and screaming. I kind of cussed out my therapist a couple of times. I didn't like what she wanted me to be accountable for. And I fought her tooth and nail on a lot of things. And but I stuck with her, and I stuck in that journey. And at some point, that journey ended because I felt like I'd gone as far as I needed to go, but it didn't end my healing process. And I went into a process that took me to a self-development, personal development, doing the self-work. And it was in the self-work that I began to check myself on what things connected me to that person. Why did I end up in that situation? Why did I stay as long as I did? Why didn't I leave earlier? What was my blueprint with my family that put me in the mindset to be in that situation and not leave and stay as long as I did? And I want women to understand that even though you go through challenges or you go through a difficult situation where it may be a family member, a friend, or your spouse, where the relationship is toxic or abusive, that you can use that opportunity and those challenges to create a space to evolve into the next level of your life.
Okay, great. That another great story. I'm going to keep saying because this is really going to be impactful. Thank you, Jennifer, so much. Thank you. And I think that you made a good point when you said, you know, people they say, get out of it, and you get out of it, but we never hear what people go through after. You know, it's almost like, okay, she's out of it, end of story. But you don't know, you know, all that you go through after you get out of it. So that's a great story. Thank you. Okay, Marvette.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Marvette Davis, and I'll go ahead and echo everyone's sentiments, Stacey. I appreciate the platform, and I am more than honored to be in this anthology. I'm in Stormproof. And the title of my chapter is Secure Your Own Mask. So it came from a lot of the points that the women on this Zoom have mentioned about Jennifer just talked about checking yourself, and Lisa talked about how stress kills you and to be your own advocate. And Ruth was talking about asking for help and speaking up. And then Stacey said Stacey, you said that you look your best on your worst days. I'm going to start there because today is one of those days where I probably look really good to some people. It was a terrible day. It was a terrible day. And part of the reason that I was late to the call as well. So I just wanted to get that out there. Nicole put out sort of like a call to action. The way I look at it is, if you have a story to tell, don't sit back, don't wait, don't think that nobody would care about your story or read your story, because they will, and it will help someone. And just for that alone, you should tell your story if it could help someone, just like you needed help in the time that you were immersed in whatever story you're telling. The story that I tell is about how there were so many things going on with me all the time, and I can't remember who said it. It might have been you, Stacey, that you're the youngest. There's only two of you, but you're the younger of the two. So am I. So I have second child syndrome really, really bad. I sort of try to think back into the background. My sister started out with a very large personality because she was an only child for a few years. And my parents, it was the first time, right? Everything she did was the first. Everything she had going on was the first. And even if I did it and not purposely, but I definitely felt well, we've seen that before, you know, almost like that, but it was before too, you know, the first time it was cute. So I sort of got into that in my own head. It's just like, well, if somebody else has done it before, I'm not the first to do it. So I won't say anything out loud. I'll just kind of, I'll do it, but I won't say much. And I masked a lot of what I had going on with creating things, being creative, helping other people. And what happened was I was going through a whole lot, just like now, and just like we are a lot of the time. But what happened was I had a family member who needed help. And instead of securing my own mask before I tried to help someone else, I just allowed that other person to come into my space. I have a young child, and he is adopted. Another time that I was helping someone else, instead of securing my own mask, it turned out me actually in adopting him, I was securing my own mask. I was engaging in self-help, and I guess staying my own emotions and helping my heart. So I'm hoping that, and I thought that was the story I was going to tell in the book, but I couldn't get to 1,000 words with that, because that is a book in and of itself that I'm supposed to stand on my own 2 feet and believe in my story and tell that separately. This chapter is about what did I learn and what am I not going to do again? And ending up the summary of my chapter, I think I nodded and smiled more tonight than I have in months. In agreement, in I guess it was sort of like security to hear from everyone else. Like, it's not just you, Marvette. All of us have been there or are there right now. So I am grateful to everybody who is on here. I'm even more grateful that although I was late, I was able to hear and contribute. And I cannot wait to see all of the souls that we're going to touch with these 2 books, with these 2 anthologies. And it is the birth of another anthology that I have started on my own, just from this. So thank you, Nicole. I love you. And I'm the little sister in my family, but I have so many other sisters, even on this call and in these 2 anthologies, and I'm full. So thank you.
Marvette.
Yeah.
Marvette, I just wanted to say that, my story I sat on for eons. I'll be 52 this year. After you get 45, you quit counting. So I'll be 52 this year. And when Nicole put the word out, I knew I was supposed to tell this particular story. I mean, you've got, if you've been around longer than 30 years, you've got at least 2 or 3 chapters worth of stuff that you could tell somebody.
Yes.
I mean, at least, so this was a story that you were supposed to tell about, your chapter. And I was looking back at mine, I was like, but nobody wants to hear about, 1,000 girls have been raped, 1,000 girls have been molested, 1,000 girls have had, things going on with them. And I'm not going to tell it, but there was a Bible study that my pastor's wife did one time. She says, if it's still a secret, then it's still a problem. If you can't tell it, if you can't share it, then you're not healed from it, and you might want to work on that. So I said, oh, well, maybe I should sit my behind down and tell my story. I've always wanted to, but never really felt comfortable enough. So, but in this is like, okay, yeah, we can do this. This, it's just like Lisa was saying, getting it down to 1,000 words. I think I had probably half a book when I first started, and then, okay, whittle it down to 1,000 words. Okay, that's really hard. But I wanted to tell you, Marvette, that you were supposed to tell your story now. Now is the time, for all of us. Now is the time. So don't feel like, nobody wants to hear it, because I was thinking the same thing. Anybody want to hear this?
And ladies, what we have to remember is that there's a whole nother 2-3 generations coming up behind us. So what we've heard, I'm that Phil Donahue generation, Phil Donahue, Oprah Winfrey, talk shows, soap opera. So it seems like we're on repeat, but we always have to keep in mind that there's so many generations behind us that hasn't even experienced the half of what we have. So it's always going to be somebody that needs to hear. And even people in our generation, our age, still need to hear it. So we need to still share, you know, our information and stuff. And there's a place, and that was another thing I realized. This is a big, big world. Sometimes we get caught up in our box, but we got to remember there's a whole world out here, people experiencing different things at different times. So your story is definitely something that can be heard. So thank you. Thank you, Marvette.
And Miss Marvette, I was just going to be able to add to that, if you don't mind. When she said 1,000 people have heard it, I was thinking 1,000 people may have heard it, but what about that 1,001? The 1,001, and not just the 1,001, but the 1,001 that's your close friend that have secrets that she may have been needing to say and talk about, but it's your courage that has now given her the courage to come forth. That cousin, that niece, that nephew, that child, that person that you go to church with, it's always that 1,001. So even with you reaching the one, for each and every one of us that reach even the one, the chains that are broken off of their life and the yokes that are destroyed from their life, from reaching the one, for us having the courage to speak up, that is something to celebrate. That is something to rejoice about for even the one.
Amia, you breaking up. Can everybody else? Okay. All right, Amia. I think
I
she was
apologize.
breaking.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit. So some of what you were saying, you went.
She actually was clear on my end.
No,
So.
I guess
okay, so maybe
hear that because I heard it all. Amen.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay, well that's fine. It's just maybe it's on my end. So she was starting to go out a little bit, but that's fine. So if you all heard it, that's good. Prayerfully, it'll be in the recording, even though it was breaking up a little bit. So
yeah, I was just saying that she said 1,000, and I was talking about the 1,001, whether it's that one person to be reached, that one family member, that one friend that was not able to come forth with their truth because they didn't want other people to look at them a certain way. We all wear these masks and we wear the makeup and we put on the clothes, and we're not really exposing the authenticity of who we are, that true self of who we really are. And by each and every one of us as women coming forth to tell our stories, which primarily in our culture, it's don't tell your business, don't tell what's going on in your home, don't tell what's going on in the household. And because of that, we have gone to a place where we feel we have no voice and that we're silent, and we hold these things in until we in our 30s and 40s and 50s, and some of us even take it to our grave. But in each and every one of these stories, my heart has been touched, and I am looking forward to the one life that you're going to reach, that's going to catapult to another life that they're going to reach, and that how God is just going to continue to move it forward. So I am congratulating each and every one of you in advance for the life that you're going to touch.
All right. So I think, do we have anybody else? Because I think Amia just summed it up for us. So we don't have any other ladies. All right. Well, again, Amia just summed it up for us. I am truly, truly excited about these 2 volumes, about the lives that these ladies are going to touch. And again, I'm already putting it out there in the universe. When y'all end up on Good Morning America and Oprah and everybody else, I will be able to say they were on my podcast first.
Wow, thank you.
So yes. All right. So Nicole, so again, at the end of the podcast, you'll see information on how to get the book. I know the volumes are not released yet, but you do have the ability to pre-order. Lisa and I talked, and I think the release date, is it still April 1st?
I believe so. Well, I don't know if it's April 1st, since they're going to the publisher. They're going to print this week. So perhaps April 1st, we may have an electronic version. Just depends on how soon they can get in our hands from the publisher due to COVID restrictions with shipping.
Okay. And so will you share your information, Nicole, for those that want to pre-order the book? And then I will put it in the link.
So they can go to the website. My website is www.jnicolespeaks.com. You can also go to PayHip, www.payhip.com/jnicolespeaks.
Okay. And again, this will be at the end of the podcast, and I will put it in the links on YouTube and Apple and all of that. So I'm excited again. And I thank you, ladies, so much for allowing me to present, and help tell your stories. I pray that you all will add me to your Facebook page, because I was reading the bios, and it's a couple of you ladies. I would just like to stay connected with you all, just period. So please add me to the Facebook page.
Yes.
And I am excited. And I thank you all for a wonderful session. And as I always say when I end my podcast, keep reading to feed your mind, because everything has a purpose. Thanks.
And I keep reading to free your mind.
Yes, and free your mind as well.